Testing, testing. Can you hear me online? Very good. Thank you. All right, we have made it to our last evening together. We can all have our Mondays back. Uh, but we are going to look at two books this evening, Ecclesiastes and Song of Songs. So there should be a PowerPoint and three handouts to kind of fill out as we move along. So if you're online, check that email that Jolene sent out. Everything should be attached. So far, so good. Making sure the streaming works. Oh, it's quite behind. All right, very good. So, as we look at Ecclesiastes, little perspective. If you remember on our first night, as we were delving into the background of Hebrew wisdom literature, we talked about the necessity of reading them as a unit. If you just only focus on Job or Ecclesiastes, it's a pretty negative, can be a pretty negative view. But partnering it with Proverbs and Psalms, we get a nice balanced human response to God, why bad things happen, how do we deal with our mortality, how do we have a relationship with God when he sometimes seems missing. These are all things I think that our wisdom literature books altogether can help us track. So Proverbs attempts to discover life-securing knowledge by demonstrating fidelity to the divine will as it penetrates the universe. So what does it mean to be wise? Fearing the Lord, Proverbs 1:7 says, is the beginning of it. And we looked at the different type of fools there were. And this came up in something in another, now I can't remember, but I'm like, I know what that word means. Anyway, I like when I learn something too. Anyway, so we have practical insights from Proverbs on how to live. Remember, the first few chapters was the father and the mother teaching their children the ways they should go. Then we moved into the two-line parallelisms, the adages, and all of this is a way to balance the righteous, wise path compared to our foolish path, with hopefully ending up where we want to end up. Job hopes to recover an early relationship with God after God has withdrawn to an impenetrable silence. That even though it seemed that Job did not deserve, and I use this word on purpose because I think we all can agree on what we really deserve, even though Job did not deserve what he got, his punishments, his family being taken away, his wealth being taken away, bad stuff happens. Bad stuff happens, and I mean, we, in our limited view of the world or life, or right, we sometimes do not have answers to our question why, but maybe our question needs to be how we continue to be in relationship with God when we feel like he has turned a deaf ear to our prayers or is not as close as he used to be. There is no promise that we will be rewarded with 3 times as much stuff as Job was, but we will continue to have a relationship with God, which is what is important. So tonight, Ecclesiastes kind of seemingly, and I put this in quotes because if you read it quickly. I think you'll miss the point. But seemingly lacks trust in God or knowledge and asks the question, does life have any meaning at all? He does ask this question, but his answer at the end is a positive one. He gets real negative for a while, but then he comes around. So the title of the book, Ecclesiastes, this is a Latin word that comes from the Septuagint, the Greek Old Testament, and the Hebrew title is Kohelet, which is the Hebrew word in the beginning in verse 1, the words of the teacher, my translation says in 1:1. Preacher might be another translation. The son of David, king in Jerusalem. So a lot of people associate this as being connected to Solomon. This is the Jewish tradition, right? What other son of David is king in Jerusalem? Well, technically anyone in the line of David could be son of David, king in Jerusalem. So there have been some scholars, or another Jewish tradition, Hezekiah might be associated with this. He kind of talks about himself, when we read through Ecclesiastes, he was king, like in the past tense, but Solomon died while he was king. So if you really want to get into the weeds, there are people who argue it is church tradition that connects Ecclesiastes with Solomon because, right, he was the wisest of wise men. But others say probably not. It doesn't matter to me. We're going to refer to the author as Kohelet. We're just not going to answer this question, is what I'm gonna just avoid this, because I don't think it really matters either way. The lesson from the text is not dependent on who wrote it, in my opinion. But you can disagree with me. And also, warning, we're going to call Song of Songs, not Song of Solomon. But anyway, all right, so when do we date this text? Well, it depends on the author. So Solomon's final year as king was 940 BCE, which this was the era, right? We have King David associated with a lot of our Psalms, and we date him about 1000 BCE. So if we want to keep this wisdom literature unit a unit, it makes sense that maybe it's during this United Kingdom era. But if it's not associated with King Solomon, some have posited the idea of the post-exilic period. King Cyrus has let the Jews go home, and they are rebuilding the wall, they're rebuilding the temple, they're rebuilding their lives. And they had to have asked questions. Why? Why did Yahweh lose to the Babylonian gods? Why did God let Nebuchadnezzar defeat us? So this could be a text that could be helpful, inspirational, maybe, allowing us to ask these questions. And I think we saw that with the Psalms, with our laments, the groaning versus grumbling. Like, we can take all of our emotions before God, but where we end up, I think, is what's more important. Let's not wallow in the disgruntled nature, but let's swing around and land in God's sovereignty, and we're just humans, and suck it up. Sorry, not sorry. This is how life goes. This, I think, is where we end up with Job. Also, we have maybe some Greek philosophical traditions, maybe. This is like when people talk about the book of Hebrews being Platonic and after Plato's thinking. I'm not super convinced on these kind of arguments. I think what's happening is this is just a cultural thing that everyone like, if you asked anyone on the street today what the golden rule is, everyone would know what it was. Not everyone would know. It comes from Leviticus 19:18, but everyone would know, right? So this thing that's just this cultural idea, whether you're a believer or not, everyone knows it. Aristotle's golden mean, where we are avoiding extremes in the pursuit of satisfaction. We're not going to be super happy or super sad. We're just going to be kind of middle of the road. These just become kind of cultural ideas that doesn't mean our author had anything to do with Aristotle or Greek culture. It just permeated the ancient Near East. What is more interesting to me is the language. The Hebrew of the text is more similar to Ezra, Nehemiah, and Zechariah, which are later writings, of course, post-exilic writings. This has a stronger weight, argument-wise, in my opinion, than whether or not we have Greek philosophical concepts infiltrating the text. All this to say, I don't think we can nail down the author, which means we really can't nail down the date. But I think we're all okay with that. I'm just being complete in our thoughts. Important phrases we need to know when we read through Ecclesiastes. Fearing God. This has been, if we need to encapsulate Hebrew wisdom literature in 3 words, here it is. Of course, each of our texts approach it differently. I think, right, Proverbs, this is the basis of a wisdom and knowledge, fearing the Lord, fearing God. Job, I think, swings a little bit more in the be afraid and in awe of God. Remember his voice from the whirlwind. Job cannot even have a response. He is so put in his place. He is so humbled. Where were you when what was the ostrich? Lays eggs on the ground. Anyway, just the most silly things. Where were you, Job? You were nowhere, right? Because I'm God and I'm creator. So Job's view of fearing God, I think we have the aspect of keeping the awe and reverence and a little bit of afraid, where we are created and we have a hierarchical place in this relationship. Now when we get to Ecclesiastes, we are balancing righteousness with wickedness. We are trying to break out of the cycle of the universe. Might be a way to think about Ecclesiastes. You're born, you live, you die. Which is true. Except we don't know when we die, right? So let's see how we can live a full life for our numbered days. But then we need to determine what a full life means. And I think Ecclesiastes helps us answer these kind of questions. The phrase under the sun, or grasping for the wind. Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, is describing life apart from God. You can't grasp the wind. You can't take hold of it. If you try, it's as useless as trying to live apart from God. Vanity of vanities. This is a superlative in Hebrew, just like Holy of Holies or Song of Songs. This is the extreme vanity. Everything is meaningless. But really, Ecclesiastes will walk back on this a little bit. So we need to keep these phrases in mind as we read through our text, so we're really tracking what he's trying to tell us. So some literary features in our text. Genre-wise, this is more like Job than it is Psalms and Proverbs. I don't even remember if I have a genre. Maybe I'm jumping ahead. But this is more the, what's the word? Where we're dialoguing, we're contemplating versus the practical side of living. And we'll get a little practical advice. But it's closer to Job than it is to Psalm and Proverbs. But some literary features we see in the text. A lot of first person. The author has observed and reflected back on his life. He's an old man now. And he straight up asks, what was the point? What did I really accomplish in my life? And now as I age and I'm no longer king, what's the point? So we have a lot of first person, I saw, I know, I said in my heart. He uses proverbs, adages. We have some autobiographical narratives, some stories, some poems. So just like we saw with Job, the incorporation of other mini subgenres, if you will, in the text. So Kohelet provides two opposite views of life, a lot like what Proverbs did. The wisdom versus folly, or the way of the wise versus the way of the foolish, the way of the righteous versus the way of the wicked. So the goads and the nails. The goads, like if you are a shepherd or you're herding your oxen or whatever. Whatever stick you're going to use to poke them to get your animals to go where they need to go. The goads are a view of the world without divine revelation. This is where everyone hangs out in the goads in the negative part. Except they're meant to prod you to think. Is this really the end-all be-all? Because the nails, which you should have a handout for, that we will look at as we move through the text, this is the view of the world with divine revelation. So fixed points of reference in the quest for meaning. And here we have a focus on surety and hope. There is nothing better than this, he says. Or I commend this way of life or this way of thinking. So we need to not stop with the goads. We need to make sure we're being pointed in the direction, prodded in the direction of the nails. And this is where we're going to get our practical living advice. So chapter 1, 1 through 11. We could maybe entitle this section The Vanity of the Cycle of History and Nature. Vanity of vanities, verse 2. All is vanity. I mean, these are absolute statements. Is that really true? Do we really believe that every day? This is a life without hope. What do people gain from all the toil at which they toil under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun goes down and hurries to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south, around to the north, round and round goes the wind, and in his circuit the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they continue to flow. All things are wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be. There is nothing new under the sun. He does really have a point. So when you're, reading and studying something and you have this amazing idea and then you realize 15 other people in the last 2,000 years had that same idea, it puts you in your place a little bit. But don't stop there. Anyway, so we can say, he's pretty clear. He's pretty negative in the first few verses. Life is empty. There seems to be no apparent purpose to nature. The wind just goes here and goes there and goes wherever. Human toil is fruitless. The endless cycle of life and history is meaningless. Except we have the phrase, right? History repeat. If you don't know history, history repeats itself. So maybe we do need to be aware of what's happened before so we don't repeat it. In verse 12, we have our I, our first person. I, Kohelet, when king over Israel and Jerusalem, applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to human beings to be busy with. So now our view of wisdom is even kind of in a negative. Sorry, I'm like choking on my cough drop. So even seeking out wisdom becomes an unhappy business. I saw all the deeds that are done under the sun, and see all is vanity and a chasing after the wind. He applies his mind to seek and search out wisdom, but even that is chasing after the wind, he says in verse 18. He tried to try out pleasure, but this was also vanity, he says in 2:1. And this is where we take a little bit of a turn from maybe Proverbs in 2:14. The wise have eyes in their head, but fools walk in darkness, yet I perceive the same fate befalls all of them, which I take both the wise and the foolish will die. So if we're not careful, right, we just get real dragged down by this. What is the point? The point, I think, is our first nail in 24. There is nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. This also I saw, is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases him, God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner, he gives the work of gathering and heaping, only to give to one who pleases God. This also is vanity and a chasing after the wind. So what's our takeaway? What's our nail? What's our teaching in 24 through 26 that we need to hang our thought on? Who can summarize 24 through 26? Eat, drink, and be merry. Enjoy life. Now, we don't need to be gluttons. We don't need to rub it in other people's faces if we have been blessed differently than someone else. But we are created. And God doesn't want us to be dull, sad people like Kohelet in his Barca lounger by the fire with cognac. Anyway, right? He's just so grousing. But I don't know if hyperbole probably is too strong of a word. But when we get to 24, our ears should perk up. This is different than what we've heard before. So, God, we need to find enjoyment in our toil. Work is a reality, but do something that you love to do, and then it's not really work. This is from the hand of God, and he who pleases God will be given wisdom. The fear of the Lord is an idea. Wisdom is from God. We fear the Lord, we get wisdom. So we're pretty negative in chapters 1 and 2, but then we end with this positive how to have a better view of life. There will be struggles, but that's not where we need to hang out. In chapter 3, we see a description of the plight of humanity apart from God. Life is filled with unalterable circumstances. And here maybe we get some echoes of Job a little bit. How are we going to respond to these unalterable circumstances? The cancer diagnosis, or the death, the untimely death, or the loss of a job, or the loss of a marriage, right? Things are going to happen because free will is a thing. So how are you going to respond? Our next sheet that we're going to fill out, we're going to spend a little time, human freedom versus human limitations. So this is a very familiar poem. Songs have been written. I think the Birds sing one. Anyway, I will not sing this to you. But let's look at our 3 big questions on our worksheet. What circumstances in life are largely outside of a person's control? I want you to think about it as I read through this. In which situations can people make choices that largely determine the outcome of events? And why can't right choices in these situations guarantee the desired outcome? So let's see if we can fill in our boxes, our blanks here. 3:1. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up. A time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. 6b is my favorite verse. I'm the throwaway part. Yes, I live with a bunch of keepers. It's really hard for me. Verse 7. A time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak. I think we all need to practice 7b a little bit. A time to love, a time to hate, a time for war, a time for peace. So which of these situations, circumstances, are largely outside of our control? Which ones can we fill in our top box? When we're born and when we die. We have no control of that. Is that it? Is that the only one? Yeah.
I was kind of thinking, I don't know, this might be kind of outside the box or whatever, but for me it was the appointed times and seasons. Those are the things that we don't have control over.
The appointed time for seasons.
Because it starts out, there's a time for everything in a season. The appointed times and seasons are the things that we don't have control over.
The appointed time of something and the seasons are things we don't have control over. So maybe a broad picture, and then it gets specific there in 2 through 8. What about, in which situations can people make choices that largely determine the outcome of events in our list?
A time to speak and a time to be quiet.
A time to speak and a time to be quiet. How you handle what happens to you. Give me an example.
Well,
Like what your response is going to be.
yes,
Whether you
time
mourn,
to love or time to hate.
time to love or time to hate.
Choose to love or to condemn.
Okay. Choose to forgive, choose to, this wasn't one of them, but in following. Okay. So how you respond. Maybe a time to plant and a time to harvest is something that you, I think the farmers, right? They have a window of opportunity, maybe due to rainfall or temperatures or whatever, right? So in my, over spring break, I went with a group to Zimbabwe to visit one of the missions ministries that our church supports, and our church helped supply them a pivot, those big old long things in the field that irrigates, right? But it came late, which these people live in the middle of nowhere and you cannot get there from here. So I don't think it's anyone's fault, but they are waiting to plant before when this pivot gets there. And it was only through the power of God and prayer that their crops are doing so well, because it was past the window. And if we have any farmers in here, you know, or gardeners, you know what I'm talking about. And I have a coworker. I find gardening a lot of work, so I don't do it. I like the idea, what I would know. I just want you to produce the food on my table. I don't want to actually work for it, the weeding and the harvesting. But almost on a daily basis, my coworker Matt comes in and says, today's the day to plant the beans. Today's the day to plant the potatoes or whatever. And he knows. I mean, he's doing all the research and has done this for years, da 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 da. But here, planting and harvesting, I think, is a situation where the outcome of events, how well your plants thrive, you make a determination on. Any others that from our list here that you can have some control over?
Time to mourn and a time to dance. I mean, like you are kind of in control of your feelings in that when you decide.
To be done with the grieving, and it's different for everyone, right? We might not be wanting to dance for a while, but we might be able to move out of, yes. So, which I think goes with your answer, our response to situations, how long we mourn when we feel we can dance again, a time to seek and a time to lose. I'm not sure we have control over that. I look for things that I've lost. I wish I didn't lose them. If I had control over that situation, I wouldn't have lost it, so I wouldn't need to be seeking it. But you kind of get the gist. So, even if we choose the right choice in these various situations, why does this not guarantee the desired outcome? This is a bit of a softball question. Who's really in control?
That's what I was gonna say, ultimately.
Yeah, we have free will to make choices, but ultimately God is in control of things, and we can do our best to navigate, but He is the one in His sovereignty who knows how these things are going to work out. Or not work out if the case is that's what His will is. So, we have a little bit of an enigma here. We're locked into a continuum, our earth lifespan continuum, but we know about eternity as post-Easter, post-resurrection believers, which Kohelet was not, right? So we got to be a little careful shoving our Christian worldview on a Hebrew text. Really, we need to move our Hebrew text into the New Testament. But the nail that we see here in verses 12 through 15 and 22, I know that there is nothing better, remember this was our positive statement, for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. Moreover, it is God's gift that all should eat and drink and take pleasure in their toil. I know that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it, not anything taken from it. God has done this so that all should stand in awe before Him. That which is already has been, that which is to be already is, and God seeks out what has gone by. And then jumping to 22. So I saw that there is nothing better that all should enjoy their work, for that is their lot. Who can bring them to see what will be after them? So again, this is similar to our first nail. We need to strive to be happy. I don't think God wants us to be sad, depressed people that are just waiting to die. But enjoy the life that God has blessed us with. Enjoy our toil, whatever that looks like. The joke in A Bug's Life. Have you ever seen the cartoon movie A Bug's Life? It's very cute. The grandma, explaining the plot line, doesn't matter. But the joke is, this is our lot in life. It's not a lot, but it's our life. Anyway, it was really cute. The grandma says it. The queen, well, actually, doesn't matter. I digress. But the jokes from the movie is what my fiance at the time told each other during our engagement picture, so we would have natural smiles. He's a real aggressive smiler. Like, you need to chill out, dude. So anyway, that was it had a lot of good one-liners. Really cute movie. Okay, so there is a sovereign God who is in control. We might be able to have impact on certain things, but in general, I think what we're getting so far is that we need to enjoy the life we have been given. So we have some conclusions of Kohelet's observations in chapter 4. Again, I saw all the oppressions that are practiced under the sun. Remember, under the sun means life without God. Look, the tears of the oppressed, with no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors there was power, with no one to comfort them. Of course, if you are living a life in relationship with God, the oppression might not be so bad because we have hope. We have a different perspective on our life. 4:4, then I saw that all toil and all skill in work come from one's person envy of another. This is also vanity and a chasing after wind. Here we have a couple of proverbs. Fools fold their hands and consume their own flesh. Better is a handful with quiet than 2 handfuls with toil and a chasing after the wind. Again, I saw vanity under the sun. Remember, in Proverbs, we had the numerical proverb. These are 3 things, but a 4th is better. Something similar here in 4:6, which I thought was kind of interesting. He talks about what life without God looks like for the solitary individual, someone with no family. They have no end to their toil. Their eyes are never satisfied with the riches because they ask, who am I toiling? I don't have anyone to give it to. This is also vanity and unhappy business. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. If they fall, one will lift up the other. But woe is the one who is alone. So the second half of our chapter here, we get really practical advice. In verse 13, better is a poor person, but wise, than an old and foolish king who will no longer take advice. One can indeed come out of prison to reign, even though born poor in the kingdom. I saw all the living who, moving about under the sun, follow that youth who replaced the king. There was no end to all those people whom he led, yet those who came later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and a chasing after the wind. So we get the idea that if you don't have a family, something to share with, to pass on to, this is becoming pointless and a little sad. But then also, what is your motivation to do things? Is it just to make a name for yourself? Because pretty sure the next generation or 2 generations, they're not going to remember who you are. So what is your motivation? Is it to glorify yourself or is it to glorify God? Sure, yes. This is exactly. Which I think becomes Ecclesiastes' point too. So guard your steps when you go to the house of God in 5:1. To draw near to listen is better than the sacrifice offered by fools, for they do not know how to keep from doing evil. Never be rash with your mouth, nor let your heart be quick to utter a word before God, for God is in heaven and you are on earth. Therefore, let your words be few. I hear Job here in this. This idea of drawing near and guarding your steps. Right? We have the tabernacle being built after the Hebrew slaves leave Egypt. This is where God's presence can dwell. But when we move into the New Testament, the Corinthians are told they are God's temple, God's dwelling place. We get this in chapter 3. In chapter 11 of 1 Corinthians, the teaching on the Lord's Supper and how they are not discerning themselves when they approach the Lord's table. And in fact, some of them are sick and dying. Like, we have some pretty crazy consequences. So this guarding your steps as you approach the house of God, or just it being in the presence of, I think this is an important concept, and we see this in the New Testament as well. Drawing near, this is everywhere in Hebrews. What does it mean to draw near? We have believers that seem to be, in the book of Hebrews, seem to be under duress. They are a community that is struggling, and what they're called to do is to draw near to God and just sit with him. You don't even need to say anything, and it might even be better for you not to say anything. And then the idea of fulfilling your vow, to never be rash, to offer the sacrifice the right way, right? We get this in Matthew 5:33. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, right? Don't be just flippant with your words. So I find this section here in chapter 5, the standing in awe of God, very relevant regardless of the time, whether it was back then or today. In 5:8 through 6:12, we have the idea of what it looks like, how vain it is to live for yourself instead of for God. If you see, I'm in verse 8, chapter 5, verse 8. If you see in a province the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice and right, do not be amazed at the matter, for the high official is watched by a higher, and there are yet higher officials over them. But all things are considered, this is an advantage for a land, a king for a plowed field. The lover of money will not be satisfied with money, nor the lover of wealth with gain. This also is vanity. Sweet is the sleep of laborers, whether they eat little or much, but the surfeit of the rich, I don't know how to say that word, will not let them sleep. But we get our nail in verses 18 through 20. This is what I have seen to be good. We have social justice issues. We have people living for themselves and not for God. But this is what I have seen to be good. It is fitting to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil with which one toils under the sun, the few days of the life God gives us, for this is our lot. It's not a lot, but this is our life. Likewise, all to whom God gives wealth and possessions, and whom he enables to enjoy them, and to accept their lot and find enjoyment in their toil, this is the gift of God. For they will scarcely brood over the days of their life, because God keeps them occupied with the joy of their hearts. This is the third time he's basically said this. Do not get too bogged down in the cares of this world, right? We're supposed to cast our cares on him, we read in the New Testament, and instead look at this gift of life as a positive thing that God has given us. There is evil that I have seen under the sun, 6:1. Remember again, under the sun is life without God. It lies heavy upon humankind. To those whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that they lack nothing of all that they desire, yet God does not enable them to enjoy these things, but a stranger enjoys them. This is vanity. It is a grievous ill. A man may beget 100 children and live many years, but however many are the days of his years, if he does not enjoy life's good things and has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. It's really strong language that Kohelet is using here. So this misuse of wealth, the lack of social justice, not caring for the poor, not caring for the widows, not trying to address the oppression. This is what life under the sun without God looks like. We have wisdom literature here. We see this in chapter 7. A good name is better than a precious ointment, and the day of death better than the day of birth, because you are now with God. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for this is the end of everything, and the living will lay it to heart. So we have this teaching of wise living. In verse 4, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. So we see our contrastive parallelism here. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than to hear the song of fools. Verse 9, do not be quick to anger, for anger lodges in the bosom of fools. Do not say, why were the former days better than now? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this. You're asking the wrong question. Wisdom is as good as an inheritance, an advantage to those who see the sun, God. For the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money, and the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to the one who possesses it. Remember, for Proverbs, the goal was fullness of life, and how to live wisely gave us this fullness. And we see this echoed here in 12. Consider the work of God. Who can make straight what he has made crooked? And in verses 13 through 15, we see what God has done for us. In my vain life, I have seen everything. There are righteous people who perish in their righteousness, and there are wicked people who prolong their life in their evil doing. Do not be too righteous, and do not act too wise. Why should you destroy yourself? Right? If the fate is the same, what's the point? It is good that you should take hold of the one without letting go of the other, for the one who fears God shall succeed with both. So we're seeing these threads, the fearing of God and the importance of wisdom, choosing wisdom. Wisdom gives strength to the wise more than 10 rulers that are in the city. 19 through 29 asks us, what has sin done for us? Nothing. Right? It's, I found more better than death, the woman who is a trap. Maybe he's talking about folly. In verse 26, whose heart is snares and nets, whose hands are fetters. One who pleases God escapes her, but the sinner is taken by her. See, this is what I found, says Kohelet, adding one thing to another to find the sum, which my mind has sought repeatedly, but I have not found. See this, alone I found, that God made human beings straightforward, but they have devised many schemes. Free will. Here we go. Chapter 8, 2 through 8, we have encouragement to obey authorities. Whoever obeys the king's command will come to no harm. The wise mind will know the way. In verses 9 through 17 of chapter 8, we acknowledge life is not fair, but God is good. Though sinners do evil 100 times, I know it will be well with those who fear God. We have our nail in verse 15, chapter 8, 15. So I commend enjoyment, for there is nothing better for people under the sun than to eat and drink and enjoy themselves, for this will go with them in their toil through the days of life that God gives them under the sun. This is the 4th time he has brought this up, this idea. So we have a commendation of enjoying our life. Chapter 9 looks at the seeming injustices in the world. The fate is the same for all people. Everyone dies. So, where can we find hope? Whoever is joined with all the living has hope, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. The living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. They have no more reward, and even the memory of them is lost. Their love and their hate and their envy have already perished. Never again will they have any share in all that happens under the sun. Hope is found in life. If you are still breathing, you can still make an impact. If you are still breathing, you can still accomplish something. So then how do we enjoy life in the shadow of death? Here is our next nail. Don't be surprised. Go, eat your bread with enjoyment. Drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has long approved what you do. Let your garments always be white. Do not let oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life that you are given under the sun, because that is your portion in life and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do with your might, for there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol, the place of the dead, to which you are going. Sheol is not really a place of punishment. It's just a place of the dead. It depends on what type of Jew you're talking about, whether they believe in a heaven or hell. Sheol is just a neutral term. Have you ever seen the Robin Williams movie where his wife dies and he goes and finds her? It's kind of like gray. I mean, it's black and white. I mean, right? But it's just the place of the dead. There's no necessary punishment. Anyway, I always think of that movie when I think of Sheol. Wisdom and folly make an entrance here in chapter 10. Wisdom provides words that are gracious. She directs you toward right choices. She directs you toward righteousness. She directs you with relationship with God. This is what we saw in the personification of wisdom with Proverbs. And remember, we talked about that maybe we can consider the personification of wisdom like the Holy Spirit. This is God's presence on earth. She calls from the gates, tries to get your attention to come to her house. Folly, on the other hand, words consume him. Folly wants you to move away from God. And we see 5 pictures of foolishness in verses 8 through 10. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. This is true. Whoever breaks through a wall will be bitten by a snake. Whoever quarries stones will be hurt by them. Whoever splits logs will be endangered by them. If the iron is blunt and one does not whet the edge, then more strength must be exerted. But wisdom helps one to succeed. If the snake bites before it's charmed, there is no advantage in the charmer, because you might be dead. So this is interesting. These are kind of humorous, except these are, yes, these events, these pictures are what life, foolish life, might look like. In verse 12, words spoken by the wise bring them favor, but the lips of fools consume them. In chapter 11, he who dares wins. Send out your bread upon the waters, for after many days you will get it back. Divide your means 7 ways or even 8, for you do not know what disaster may happen on earth. When clouds are full, they empty rain on the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. This is true too. Whoever observes the wind will not sow, and whoever regards the clouds will not reap. So we have this encouragement Put it all out there. You don't know what the results will be. In 7 through 10, we have a teaching on joy and godliness. Light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. Even those who live many years should rejoice in all your years. Let them remember the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Remember, this is pre-Easter, right? Rejoice, young man, while you are young. Let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Follow the inclination of your heart and desire of your eyes. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. That should be 12:1, not 21:1. Banish anxiety from your mind and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years draw near when you will say, I have no pleasure to them. Here is our last nail. It's different. It's a little, I think, more palatable, maybe. Sometimes I wonder if we're really okay with enjoying our life, right? We're supposed to, discipleship, we suffer, we take up our cross. But the first 5 of our nails here in Ecclesiastes, God gave us life. We should enjoy it. But finally, our last teaching, we need to remember our Creator. We need to have relationship with God, and we need to do it before trouble comes, right? When we're in crisis mode, this is not when you start praying. So when you are a young man, start cultivating and growing that relationship with God, because there will be judgment. Everyone will be held accountable. So we have our conclusion. Verses 12:1 through 8. We have Kohelet's reflection on his old age and his death. He encourages us to remember God, and we basically end where we started. Chapter 1, 2 through 3. Vanity of vanities, says Kohelet. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What do people gain from all the toil at which they toil under the sun? And in 12, 13, and 14, the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for that is the whole duty of everyone. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. We have a complete 180 from chapter 1 to chapter 12. The point of life is to enjoy the days that God has created us. And one of the ways that we can do that is by cultivating a relationship with him and fearing him, keeping his commandments. This is our duty. This is our purpose. Because there will be accountability, he says in verse 14. So, our theological takeaway, if you will. God will eventually judge. He has said this a couple of times. Live life knowing you will be held to God's standards. And I think we can talk about a theology of contentment. One should enjoy life, not necessarily endure it. There might be seasons of suffering, if you will, or needing to persevere through a troubled time. But even in that, can we find an aspect of joy in our trying times? When we can't understand the why, can we answer with a how? Can we accept whatever God gives us? Can we trust that he is sovereign and in control and knows what's best for us and plans what's best for us? I think Ecclesiastes gives us this filter, if you will. Let's not hang out with the goats, but let's remember those nails that we can hang our capital T truth on. Ugh, look at the timing. Oh my gosh. Any questions over Ecclesiastes? It's like I planned this or something. I didn't really. It's a total crapshoot. All right, let's take about a 10-minute break, and then we will do Song of Songs. You've been waiting this whole time, I know. Testing, testing. Can online hear me? Is that a recent yes? Online? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thanks, Dad. All right. Song of Songs. They call me on the way home. Talk about the class. Like, then Dad sends me emails throughout the week of things I should. All right. Song of Songs. Just like vanity of vanities, holy of holies, this is a superlative. Shir hash shirim. Just like we have double letters in English, like bubble, B-U-B-B-L-E, we have double letters in Hebrew. That is, the SH is one letter, but this is a transliteration. So this is the best of all possible songs. Vanity of vanities, it's the most vain thing. Holy of holies, it's the holiest place ever. The Hebrew is vague as to who the author. Of course, where most of our English Bibles say Song of Solomon, we are excuse me, predisposed to talk about Solomonic authorship, but Shlomo is the Hebrew of Solomon. I actually like Shlomo way better than Solomon. We need to bring that name back. The preposition li, or li, could mean by Solomon, or it could mean for Solomon. This is also what we were seeing a little bit with our Psalms. Is the psalm written by David or for David by a Levite or a court musician? Anyway, just like, well, not just like in English, just like in Greek, one preposition can have like 20 meanings. So, again, me personally, don't need King Solomon to be the author of this book to get anything out of this book. And like Ecclesiastes, the date depends on who the author is. The book does reference a king. We're in the king's garden, the king comes to visit, but it never really specifies who the king is. So Solomon rules from 970 to 930. So if he is the author, it would be written during that time. In general, the monarchy comes to an end in 586. There have been theories where this is not one complete work, but maybe an anthology of poems that are brought together by various authors. So, how has the church traditionally handled Song of Songs? Have you heard a sermon recently from Song of Songs? Never. No one ever touches this stick with a 10-foot pole. What is it that we do with this besides encourage our junior high boys not to go there in the back of in the last pew? Well, that's hardcore, man. I'm really glad this did not happen in I don't know if I'd ever get married if we're starting here. Woo! How is the church interpreted this text, if and when we talk about it?
Jesus' love to the church.
It's an allegory. It's an allegory. This is representative of God's love or Jesus' love for the church, maybe God's love for Israel, not a literal meaning. And now we shift into our very fun puritanical ways. But yes, an allegorical interpretation has been the typical way the church has handled this, because we're prudes and we are uncomfortable, except evidently premarital counseling. Woo! Anyway, the human love described in Song of Songs allegorizes the love between God and Israel, or Christ and the church. I am not opposed to this idea, mainly because we have these ideas elsewhere explained. We don't need the Song of Songs to do this, right? We talk about the church being the bride of Christ in the New Testament. But this is usually how we handle it, because we are nervous to do anything else with it. Another method of interpretation is, and this is more of a Jewish handling, if you will, not unlike allegory. Notice my double negative. We have typology. The one thing that is different is typology is looking for an Old Testament text specifically that we can describe as historical. And from there, we can make connections, and we move this into the New Testament. So the Epistle of Barnabas, which is a New Testament apocryphal book, it is not in our canon. Here's typology, type, paradigm, example. The Old Testament provides these types, these examples, and then we see the manifestation or the fruition of it in the New Testament. So, for example, the scarlet sash or rope of Rahab, right? Whatever she needs to hang out the window in Jericho, really, this represents Christ's blood. Really? Anyway, this can get a little out of hand, I think. We do see our New Testament authors use this. Paul likes to use this. My only issue with it is we don't have any citation, quote, allusion, echo of Song of Songs in the New Testament. Not saying that they didn't know about it or didn't read it. They are not making the connection between God and the church like later believers, church fathers do down the road. So, not sure typology is the best way to go. Maybe this is a dramatic play, because we do have characters like we do in Shakespeare. We have the bride, we have the bridegroom, we have the chorus, we have companions, we have a plot. This is fantastic. A maiden loves a shepherd boy. This is a plot. A king falls in love with the maiden and takes her to his palace, but the king fails to win her heart and lets the maiden return home. Another way you can read this is the maiden loves the king, and they do end up getting married. We really get lost in the weeds in this one to know where we should end up. The only problem with this method of interpretation, this play idea, is a very Greek thing. We don't really have plays in this way in the ancient Near East. So I'm not sure this genre really fits. I'm not sure we can say this is a play. Absolutely, it's poetry. Notice we started our time together with Psalms, and we're ending bookends poetry. Anyway, so I'm not sure really seeing this as a dramatic play is really, maybe if we're, trying to keep track of our speakers or whatever, maybe it's the song of a fertility cult. This was popular in the ancient Near East, worshiping gods like Baal, the god of weather, to ensure fertile lands and good crops. And, of course, within the cultic worship, myths, stories would grow out. Love poetry would be created about the gods being worshipped. This is actually kind of a universal idea In my third year Greek class, sometimes we translate the Ode to Zeus. And it's a praise, it's a psalm of praise if you go by the literal Greek translation of these words. It's not Christian, it's not Jewish. It is a Greek thing that is a song of praise, an ode to Zeus. Excuse me. So, I don't know. We don't really have a fertility cult in the same way in Yahwehism and Israelite. We worship Yahweh. Well, because we don't have a pantheon of gods, right? We don't need to pray to one God compared to another God to get what I want in this specific situation. Yahweh is the God and in control of all things. So a slight problem is if this is a love poem to God, God is never mentioned. There's no divinity named in here. So if we are, worshiping a fertility god, and this is the love poems that we create, you think we would have the name? I don't know. I think we should land with the literal interpretation, that we have a series of poems about the beloved and her lover. I think what we're going to end up with, or where I want to end up with, is this should be a literal understanding of the way marriage between a man and a woman was meant to be. It gets kind of crazy, admittedly, but I'm not sure we have to shove God in this, because we can see this type of relationship between Jesus and the church in other biblical texts. So, what is it that we have here? Because this is a Hebrew wisdom literature class. Now, in general, we could say broadly, now this is our fifth book, right? Psalm, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. Wisdom literature is meant to develop wise and godly character for life in the real world, where bad things happen, where we are not in control, where free will can lead to some crazy consequences. And in the real world, people get married. This is mind-blowing. Notice Proverbs 5:18-20. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice in the wife of your youth, a lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always by her love. Why should you be intoxicated, my son, with a forbidden woman, and embrace the bosom of an adulteress? Remember chapters 1-7 in Proverbs. The father is teaching his son the ways to go. There is much teaching on avoiding the adulteress. Well, here in Proverbs, the least dramatic of our books, the least poetic in the sense of the crazy images given, we have a very similar teaching of how you, son, should rejoice in your wife. You should have a good relationship with your wife. So I think what we can say is that Song of Songs celebrates love, and I would argue the agape, unconditional covenantal love, and teaches what this looks like in highly emotive picture language. So if we're looking at the genre of love poetry, we see some stock elements in Song of Songs that we see in other love poems, mainly written in the first and second person. This is true. The characters, the bride and the bridegroom, speak in first person, and then the chorus speaks in the second person. There is a theme of joy of being together. When they're apart, they miss each other. Elaborate descriptions of physical beauty, enough to where it's ridiculous. And this is where we're starting to get a little creepy. Intimate or secluded areas are frequently mentioned. These little hideaways. We'll look at the garden motif in a minute, where they can have some alone time, which, right, you're really not supposed to do, because if there's anything untoward, there could be a problem. But some motifs that we don't see in our text that we might see in other ancient Near Eastern love poetry, we have no cultic celebration elements. We do see a feast, but there's no religious elements. There's no sacrificial system. There's no nothing like that. No priests, nothing like that. We don't see the lover hunting the beloved. This is kind of also a creepy idea. We don't see the personification of nature, and we don't see the theme of faithlessness and jealousy. So, love poetry is not a bad choice in regard to what genre we have, but there are some missing elements when we compare to other, like Canaanite or Mesopotamian or Egyptian love poems. This book is weird. The vocabulary, words, tons of words, only used one time. The names of places, the names of plants, the names of animals, precious stones, spices, perfumes. We never touched this book with a 10-foot pole in my Hebrew class because it is so crazy weird, which poetry is already kind of like that. We have no divine names for God. We have no words associated with worship. Here's that cultic element that's missing. And we don't have any theological ideas presented. The concept of evil, blessed, sin, honor, these things that we've seen in other wisdom literature. So again, what is the purpose of this? I'm not sure it's necessarily to have our love poem be for God, but maybe just for our spouse. So here is an outline. You should have your last handout, kind of a chart that you can fill in. Provides a different outline. We have seen throughout our books chosen during our last few weeks that there's multiple theories on how to break these texts down. But here's an outline. Chapters 1 through the beginning of 2, the anticipation, the bride, the beloved is speaking. They're found, they're lost, and they're found again in 2:8 through 3:5. The consummation in 3:6 through the beginning of 5. Lost and then found in 5:2 through 8. And then our affirmation of our love in 8:5 through 14. Notice on our chart, we just have the courtship, the wedding, the maturing marriage, which I think we could break down our 5 parts into 3 parts, if you will. I feel that this chart's a little simpler, which is totally fine. So, who's who? This is the ultimate question that no one can agree on. So, is the main male character King of Solomon? This is a question. There could be 2 men. King Solomon, but then the shepherd boy that the girl really likes. The beloved is a girl from Shulam. She's a Shulamite in Galilee. Or she's one of Solomon's wives. Like, remember, he had a lot of those. Maybe the Egyptian princess mentioned in 1 Kings 3:1, because she talks about her dark skin. Don't look at her. But she says it's because she's been outside. Her brothers have made her tend the vineyard, to do work outside, right? The lighter your skin is, the higher class you are, because you don't have to work outside and get sunburned and tanned. The daughters of Jerusalem function as our chorus, similar to a Shakespeare chorus, like in Macbeth or something. Maybe this is a group of women from Solomon's harem, or could be friends of the beloved, or just general onlookers watching this unfold in front of them, thinking this is weird and crazy. So the garden motif, I thought it would be interesting to pick one of those ideas that are really hit a lot in here and see how Song of Songs addresses it. Very much a garden, a vineyard, an orchard. This is a very popular motif in ancient Near Eastern love poetry. It's a place of seclusion where you can have a bit of privacy. Remember, the Garden of God, Eden, is a place of blessing before the fall. Nehemiah and Jeremiah talk about the garden as a royal retreat. Judges talks about the garden as a cultic center. Then we have double entendres all over the place, and maybe the beloved is a garden that's going to be planted. We won't think too hard about that. Hopefully this is after she's married. But this is a thing that, the theme that is very much throughout. So we see that in chapters 3, the consummation section of our outline is where we really see the garden motif. In 4:12, the walled garden has a locked gate. It's unapproachable, just like your chastity belt. In 4:15, the abundance of her beauty and fruitfulness when the sealed fountain and the locked gates are opened. In 4:16, she desires consummation in her marriage. And in 5:1, her lover is willing to answer her request. And so here's our double entendre coming through that now the bride represents the garden.
I don't.
Really?
I can't imagine Solomon, who has had 700 wives or concubines, being that.
Smitten by this girl.
Yeah, exactly. And neither could I imagine a girl that is so innocent and precious as she is described, being bold enough to act that way in front of the King of Kings.
Sure. So we are in the camp that maybe it's not King Solomon who is the lover, the male character here.
The 17-year-old shepherd.
Okay, Shepherd Boy. We got to vote for Shepherd Boy over here. Because, I mean, the king does show up. They talk about the king's chariot. They don't name names, but I could see the king, Solomon, showing up and saying, I need another one in my harem. And the girl being like, time out. I like my 17-year-old buddy over here. So I could see that playing out where maybe we really have two male characters that we just get lost in the translation a little bit because we're not naming names. We have a lot of pronouns. So who's the he that we're talking about? And that maybe Solomon is rejected a little bit. And this might be the one and only time in his life. I don't know.
You know, also, I kind of think about this a little bit as you're going through this, right? Think, why in the world is that even in our Bibles?
The question is, why in the world is this even in our Bible? Which is true. This is what a lot of people ask. So then we get nervous and say, oh gosh, it must really represent something else. God's love for the church. Okay, we're on safe ground again. So yes, I mean, this is a question that more than one person has, but maybe it really just is. The image, I mean, yes, we all are sitting here. You are waiting for me to start reading, and then you're going to bow your heads and grimace. I hear you. Because this is the culture we live in, right? This would have been very normal love poetry for them back then. So we're going to have to kind of put ourselves in their setting a little bit. And maybe the hyperbole of this stuff, I mean, I have a picture I'm going to show you in a minute, but if my husband talked to me about how my teeth look like sheep, I'm not taking this as a compliment. So, right? I mean, we just don't relate to this text at all.
But you know, it's interesting because if this was accepted in with the canon, right?
Yeah, this
That
for
was weird because
right.
you have these old guys.
This is true. It's been accepted in forever, and maybe I just don't think so. Maybe they even at that time were looking at a typological, allegorical, into maybe, or they just felt that I'm not super strong on my criteria for canonicity, but this has been in since the beginning. Whether it's been because of the authorship, if Solomon it's in, that could be a really strong point, or we just have the picture of marriage as God intended, and a man cherishing his wife and going over the top with these crazy descriptions and affirmations to really make her feel loved. And I really just need you to sit over there and stop touching me. Thank you. So I don't know. But yeah, all this to say, it has been included for a long time. So maybe we could work up a sermon or two every once in a while. Not a lot, maybe not even once a year. But what ends up happening, we get a little canon within the canon, and some texts we never touch. But anyway, so yes, this is the age-old question. Why did it get in there at all? And we have had many answers over the answer to this.
It gave Mark Lowry plenty of material to write a good song.
Well, there you go. It was for praise songs. This was there. Yes, I don't actually know this slide, so we're going to move on. Okay, we have parallelism in just like the rules. How to identify parallelism, synonymous, etc. We have this as well. So everything that we talked about with Psalms and Proverbs applies to this. Oh, that his left hand were under my head and his right hand embraced her. A progressive parallelism, leaping upon the mountains, bounding over the hills. Here's our synonymous parallelism. They made me keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyard I have not kept. Here's our contrastive parallelism. So this poetry elements, these rules apply to everything. We have a ton of similes. Your hair is like, your teeth are like, your nose is like. So a lot of similes, but we do have a metaphor in 115a. Right here's our implicit comparison. Oh, you are beautiful, your eyes are doves. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means. My beloved is mine and I am his. Repetition is huge. 2:16, 6:3, 7:10, repeated over. I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine. I am my beloved's and his desire is for me. 2:9, here's an example of a simile. My beloved is like a gazelle. Graceful, leaping through the grass, I don't know. Anyway, thin legs, who knows? Oh, okay, great. Yes, we need this chart. We're going to fill out this chart. Let's look at our content, if you will. We will, because it says so. So, the courtship we can describe in chapters 1 through 3. The emphasis, the speaker, the chief speaker that you can fill in your chart, is the bride, is the girl. And the emphasis is she is musing about her. They're not together, so she's thinking about him. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. Your name is perfume poured out. The voice of my beloved, look, he comes leaping upon the mountains. My beloved is mine, and I am his. Have you seen him who my soul loves? Evidently, I have typos. I was typing really fast. Okay, my beloved is mine. Put an E in your slide. And put in loves. This drives me crazy when this happens. So she describes herself a little bit. I am black and beautiful, O daughters of Jerusalem. This is where some people think maybe she's Egyptian. Like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not gaze at me because I am dark, because the sun has gazed on me. My mother's sons were angry. They made me keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyard I have not kept. Tell me whom my soul loves, where your pasture, your flock, where you make it lie down at noon. Here's where people think maybe it's a shepherd boy that she has fallen in love with. So in chapter 2, I am a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys, as a lily among brambles, so is my love among maidens. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the wild does, do not stir up or awaken love until it's ready. Verse 8:8. The voice of my beloved, look, he comes, leaping upon the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stan. Look, there he stands behind our wall, gazing in at the windows, looking through the lattice. He says to me, arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. For now the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth. The time of singing has come. And the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. It's time. We need to, the time has come for our wedding, I think. 16, my beloved is mine and I am his. He pastures his flock among the lilies until the day breathes, until the shadow flees. Turn, my beloved, be like a gazelle or a young stag on the cleft of the mountains. We have the wedding scene in 3:6 through 5:1. The main speaker here is the groom, and he speaks tenderly to his bride. I have a picture. We will pass this around, but I wanted to show the online folk. I did not get this in time to send it out. Let's see if this works. We have descriptions of what this looks like in real life. Oh, I hope you can zoom in and see. You can't see very well. I'll let you guys pass it around. Her hair are like goats. I don't know if you've seen goat hair. I'm not really sure this is a compliment, right? Her teeth are like shorn ewes. Her cheeks are like halves of pomegranates. I don't know. They're kind of bumpy. I don't know. She has a neck like the Tower of David. I don't even know what that means. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, and her garden is locked. The fountain is sealed. That we read in 4:12. And in 5:1, I come to my garden, my sister, my bride. I gather my myrrh and my spice. I eat my honeycomb with my honey. I drink my wine with my milk. Eat, friends, drink, and be drunk with love. So this ends our wedding scene. And then, according to our chart, we move into the maturing marriage for our last 3 chapters. I slept, but my heart was awake. Listen, my beloved is knocking. Open to me, my sister, my love, my dove, my perfect one. For my head is wet with dew, my locks with the drops of the night. I put off my garment. How could I put it on again? I had bathed my feet. How could I soil them? I arose to open to my beloved, my hands dripped with myrrh. My beloved, I jumped to 5:10. My beloved is all radiant and ruddy, distinguished among 10,000. His head is the finest gold. His locks are wavy, black as raven. His eyes are like doves. I really don't understand. A bird? I don't know. Beside springs of water, bathed in milk, fitly set. His cheeks are like beds of spices, yielding fragrance. His lips are lilies, distilling liquid myrrh. His arms are rounded gold set with jewels. Where has your beloved gone? The chorus asks in 6:1. Which way has your beloved turned? Where may we seek him with you? My beloved has gone down to his garden, to pasture his flock in the gardens. I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. You are as beautiful as Tirzah, as comely as Jerusalem. Turn away your eyes from me, for they overwhelm me. Verse 7, or chapter 7. How graceful are your feet in sandals. Your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat. I'm trying to work on my heap of wheat. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bath Ravim. Your nose is like a tower of Lebanon. No one wants a nose like a tower of Lebanon. Overlooking Damascus, your head crowns you like Carmel. Your flowing locks are like purple. A king is held captive in the tresses. So odd. I mean, I don't think God would talk to us like this, or I don't think we should talk to God like this. I don't know. This only could be fit for marriage. I don't know.
Is lost in translation.
Yes, yes, yes. So, in 6:5-7, we have a repetition of the description given in chapter 4. Remember, repetition was one of our figures of speech that was pretty commonly used. And again, the husband is speaker. We alternate between. So our first, the wife is speaking, then the husband is speaking, and then we have a duet at our last column, right? The maturing marriage is broken into 3 parts. They are both declaring their love to one another. 8:6-7. This I included on our wedding programs. Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is strong as death, passion fierce as the grave. If flashes are flashes of fire, a raging flame. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If one offered for love all the wealth of one's house, it would be utterly scorned. So the end of our maturing marriage is this, in verses 6 and 7, this pledge, this seal that they are setting on each other's hearts, which I think is our takeaway. I think we can look at the Song of Songs as a didactic poem, instructing them maybe on the relationship between God and his people, definitely on the value of monogamous love, maybe written as a critique of King Solomon and all of his wives and concubines. That's an interesting thing to think about. But very much I think we have a celebratory poem celebrating the nature of created humanity. So I wonder if we end up a little bit in the same spot we do with Ecclesiastes. Absolutely on opposite ends of the continuum, but both of them are encouraging, enjoying your life, living your life to this full, acknowledging that you are a created human being with a purpose and a relationship with God, and part of that will include maybe your relationship with your spouse. So the theological significance of this text. God created humanity as sexual beings. One of the first commands to Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply. So male and female were created procreation, companionship, physical and spiritual support. Love between a man and a woman is a gift of God, and love should be highly valued. And I think marriage can serve as an analogy of God's love for humanity. With that being said, I will digress and get on my high horse. 1 Corinthians 13. Not for marriage. Well, no, not for your wedding ceremony. I think it's important to realize what's happening in chapter 12 and chapter 14. I think these are, starting in 11, really, worship issues. And if we don't love one another and appreciate everyone's spiritual gifts, we're not going to have a healthy, believing community. I think this is what 1 Corinthians 13 is about. Really need people to stop using this in their weddings. I'm not saying, no, I really am saying we really shouldn't, because I'm not sure marriage is the context that Paul is thinking about when he's talking about agape there. Really, that's within the context of worship, and it just really bothers me, if you can't tell. Anyway, instead, maybe we can bring out Song of Songs a little more, because this is actually about marriage. So, anyway, I am not upset if we want to use this as a text, as an analogy of God's love for humanity. But I'm not even sure we really necessarily need to, per se. But think about this for a second. 8:6 versus John 3:16. Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is as strong as death, passion fierce as the grave. Its flashes are flashes of fire, a raging flame. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If one offered for love, all the wealth of one's house would be utterly scorned. And then, of course, in John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he sent his one and only Son. So we have this amazing picture of love in 8:6 and 7, which I think then just really goes to show the power of the love in John 3:16. I mean, it's already powerful, but as the first verse every little kid in church memorizes, I think we lose a little bit. It just becomes rote, and we forget really what John 3:16 is really telling us. So I wonder if Song of Songs does need to be resurrected a bit and help us have a deeper sense of what this agape love really stands for. So anyway, whether you need it to be God representing, Song of Songs representing God's relationship with the church, or Jesus and the church is the bride, that's up to you. I think we get those analogies from other texts. We don't need Song of Songs to do that for us, but if the goat hair thing is weird, I get it. So anyway, this brings us to an end of our Hebrew wisdom literature. Do not ask me any questions about Song of Songs. I don't know any answers. So very good. Well, thank you so much for sticking with me. We are still contemplating the fall's topic, so enjoy your summer, and we will see you all later.